Hey everybody, it is Jordan here from W&W, and we got another Tyranid Tactics video. This time it's a unit spotlight on my favorite unit in the Codex, the Gargoyles. In this video, I'm going to show you and try to convince you as to why I think they are the best unit in our Codex and some really useful tricks for you to use in your games of Warhammer 40k. So in these unit spotlights, I like to go way further beyond just the data sheets of these units that we're talking about, because I think everybody can read the data sheet and understand that they have a strength 5 gun, and against Space Marines, they're going to wound on 3s. However, I'm going to go in depth with some tactics that I use in order to make full use of gargoyles, because I think they're very powerful. But there's kind of a skill floor with them, I think. So the basics before we dive into those exact tactics is they're incredibly fast, of course. They have a 12-inch move, their guns are assault, and then they shoot and scoot. So you're able to shoot something even without advancing. You're going to have a minimum 18-inch movement. And then if you advance with them, which often you will, you have a potential to move 24 inches with a 10-man unit, which is just absolutely crazy. And what allows them to be even more powerful is their high OC. Every single one of those guys is 2 OC, and it's going to elevate your primary denial and your primary scoring to just ridiculous lengths because of that, because they're able to reach so far. You think of a lot of MSU or minimum sized units, they're going to be 5 models, and oftentimes those 5 model units, 1 OC each. So that means you only need to put 3 gargoyles on any objective with those minimum size units in order to just deter them from primary for that objective. So it's very powerful. In addition, deep strike, the gargoyles are going to be able to be wherever they want to be, as long as it's outside of 9 of enemy units anytime that they want. So you can just bring them in, boom, and then they're there. Great. And last but certainly not least, with the basics before we get into some more tips and tricks, is gargoyles, because they are a 10-man unit, they have a ginormous possible footprint with how they can string out and just take up a whole bunch of space on the board. And I'll talk exactly about that later on in this video. All right, so our key strategies on, just thinking about, at least in this slide, about deploying and kind of how we are going to stage our gargoyles. Staging is key. So when you're deploying your gargoyles, something that I want you to try and consider is do your best to string out your gargoyles when you deploy them to add to your movement. And, it's not explicitly going to add to your movement. No, the book doesn't say if you string out your gargoyles, they get +2 movement. However, if you think about it, if you clump up your gargoyles and you're not spreading them out as far as they can go, then you are actually already cutting movement off, because they're going to have to move and use a lot of their movement in order to reach spots where, if you had already strung them out already, then they don't have to use that movement to get that far out. So when you're deploying, do your best to kind of string them out. And you can see I've deployed 2 gargoyles in this little makeshift deployment mat on the top left, and then the bottom left as well. You can see that's kind of how I would deploy them. And I'm still being careful to make sure that they're out of line of sight of any units so that we don't get our gargoyles needlessly killed. By doing this, it is very easy for your gargoyles to grab 2 objectives. And you can see that the other 2 gargoyle units that I've put onto this board, that's kind of just showing where the deployed units can string out and move just off of a turn 1 movement, because of their 12-inch move and then their shoot and scoot and advance. It's very possible for them to string out and grab 2 objectives. And that's important, because if your opponent only dedicates like a certain amount of fire on one objective, then you can just pull your gargoyles off that objective and then leave them on the other. Or if your opponent really isn't able to kill the gargoyles this turn for some reason, then that means there's a potential of you scoring 10 extra points on primary by just sending your gargoyles out and touching 2 objectives. In addition, this is a very easy way to just take your opponent off of 2 objectives in no man's land by just making your gargoyles touch those 2 objectives. I hope that makes sense. Last but not least, with the 2-inch coherency, you can really see how far out the gargoyles can spread because they're a 10-man unit. The next slide is talking very specifically about this method. Um, but as you can see here, with that 2-inch coherency and 10 models in a unit, you really are able to cover such a large area of the board with these gargoyles. So let's talk exactly about how gargoyles are able to do that with, I call this the dog bone coherency trick. As you can see, these red circles are meant to represent gargoyles, or honestly, whatever model that you have in your army. And this is kind of how you can spread out your coherency a little bit wider. We imagine, and in this slide, it is kind of cluttered. It's honestly, it's not the best slide in the world that I've ever made, and coming from a design standpoint. But if you can imagine that each of your models are spread out 2 inches on either side, you kind of make this triangle right there. So that center circle within the triangle is 2 inches from those outside ones, and it is allowing for you to take up a large space of real estate. Because, of course, coherency 2 inches within two other models if greater than 6 models in the unit. And by creating this triangle, those three gargoyles are always going to be within 2 inches of each other, um, which would then check the box of coherency of 2 models being within 2 inches of each other. Because, of course, gargoyles would be greater than 6 inches. And then you're able to pretty much just string this really long line in between those two triangles, because each of those circles will always be within 2 inches of other models, just because they're 2 inches apart. Hope that makes sense. But then, if you're able to do this, of course, it's going to do a great job of screening deep strike and move block. So if you measure 9 inches from any of these circles, it covers a ginormous area of the board, just because you're stringing out so far across the unit, and it pushes back any of your opponent's deep strikes even further, especially when you consider how fast the gargoyles can move. So it covers a large width of the board. And then in addition, because you are covering such a large area of the map, it is really going to dictate where your opponent can go, because they can't move through gargoyles, unless they're flying. But if you want to see me go in depth about move blocking, check out my video on how to beat melee armies, that is posted in our video section on this channel. I really go in depth with that, and it allows, a good discussion on beating melee armies. And then, in addition, what I was talking about before in the previous slide, by doing this method, you are very easily able to take two objectives and really do a great job of denying primary for your opponent, or increasing your own primary. Deep strike shenanigans. All right, so in this slide, I've deployed 3 different gargoyle units to just kind of highlight 3 different techniques that you can use to really make use of the deep strike ability. All right, so the bottom gargoyle squad, we're going to say, is 9 inches away from that rubric marine on the command point, or on the objective point, excuse me. But it is still within 6 of the objective. Okay, so what these gargoyles are going to go in on your turn, you deep strike in, you're 9 inches away from the rubric, you shoot the rubric a whole bunch, and then you're able to scoot 6 inches onto the objective and then take the objective from your opponent. It's pretty easy trick, and honestly, if your opponent is able to, it's pretty easy for them to play around it. But if they don't have the movement to cover the objective in a way to deter the gargoyles from doing this 6-inch scoot, then it's real bad for them, if we're being honest. So always try and measure if you have gargoyles in deep strike, which I always encourage. Having 2 gargoyle squads, one to be on the board and the other to be in deep strike. You can pull this trick off quite a lot, and I've been able to pull it off quite a bit during games of 10th edition. Okay, next up, if we look at the top objective marker, we have a Tyranifex right there, and then we have Magnus the Red staring at the Tyranifex, which is not a good time for our Tyranifex. This one is rapid ingress on a point if your other unit will be shot off. Okay, so let's say we are in my opponent's turn. He finishes his movement, and I can see very clearly that his Magnus, and maybe, I don't know, like a Forge Fiend or something, is looking at my Tyranifex and is probably going to kill my Tyranifex off this objective marker. So I would consider rapid ingressing my gargoyles and touch onto that point, just to ensure my primary. And this is going to ensure our primary because it's going to, one, make my opponent, yes, kill that Tyrannifex, but then it is going to be very difficult for my opponent to also kill my gargoyles because of how they're placed. I'm kind of tucking them in that corner and using their base, or in this picture's case, their wing, to touch onto that objective. So I have two different units on this objective marker, and thus making my opponent have to kill two units in order to really knock me off the primary. So, um, you know, don't always use rapid ingress for killing your opponent, which is great as well. But always think about if you are able to rapid ingress your models onto an objective in a way where your opponent can't touch them, but it also makes it way more difficult for your opponents to take you off that primary. And it can definitely swing the score in a way where your opponent wasn't expecting. I think a lot of times opponents are screening out rapid ingress for things to come out and shoot them or charge them easily, but not always are opponents looking out for rapid ingress to protect and uh, secure, excuse me, objective markers in your turn. And then, last but certainly not least, the gargoyles in the bottom left, right in that terrain. You can also always rapid ingress to prepare to steal primary. So you just rapid ingress your gargoyles right there behind cover so they can't be seen. And then if our top option with the gargoyles or our bottom option with the gargoyles doesn't quite pan out the way that we would like, then we can easily, like we've seen before, shoot out 12 inches, advance, and then shoot and scoot onto both of those objectives, and then take away the primary that Magnus the Red and that one rubric Marine is controlling. So if you're not able to take away your opponent's primary during their turn, then you can definitely use rapid ingress to ensure you're able to take it for your turn and the following turn after they come in. And then one thing to consider, I kind of touched on it before, but if you are playing Tyranids, I kind of recommend, and I know gargoyles are more expensive now, but I kind of recommend having two gargoyle units almost all of the time. And this is so that you can put one on the board and stage it in a way to create that Tyranid trade war that I talk about a bunch, and then also to have one in Deep Strike because gargoyles are so strong coming out of Deep Strike. Because we talked about all these tricks that you can do with them. I definitely think it delivers a very powerful play with two units available for you to, one, be on the board, and then coming out of Deep Strike and just being wherever they want. So, two squads. Think about it. Here's the slide where I talk about the channel. So welcome to the channel. So there's a couple things that we've been doing on the channel with great success. We've been having a great time. One, of course, the way that the channel started is Wednesday Night Warhammer. We play a battle report every single Wednesday, and we just have a great time. Really, if you're looking for a channel that provides the kind of entertainment of just a close group of friends playing a good game of Warhammer, you found us. We're here. Go ahead and subscribe and watch us every single Wednesday night. We do pretty competitive army lists, but we always have a good time, so it definitely, we always try and provide the kind of entertainment through our battle reports for what I think the game should be. We are competitive, but in the core of it, we are just having fun. So if that's the kind of atmosphere that you want, join our channel, because that's definitely what we are providing. In addition, every single Monday, since I've been doing a whole bunch of Tyranid content here, and I've been loving it, and people have been loving it as well, I'm doing army list reviews at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're about to have our third episode, I think, tomorrow from when I'm recording this, and it's just been a good time. Ignore the technical difficulties that I've been struggling through, but it's been really good. We're definitely building a strong community of people that are submitting some very, very cool lists, and it's just an enjoyable time where we get to share ideas with each other, and then I get to just share my ideas with how I think people can improve their play or their army list building, and it's been very, very successful. If you would like to submit your army list, go ahead in our community tab on the channel, and there's a post in there, and just, copy it from Battlescribe or from the Warhammer app, and then just post it in there. I will say that there are quite a few number of lists. I'm honestly surprised by how many people have submitted their list. So it is going to be a little bit of a queue, a little bit of a line. If you would like to support the channel while also pushing your list a little bit up front in the line, consider becoming a member. Because I do kind of put a priority on members, just as a thank you for supporting the channel. Buying us a coffee or whatever, and then I support you by looking at your list. Two more things. We will have a giveaway starting soon. We are going to give away one of the Battle Force boxes. I believe we ended up on the Knights box. If you're interested in entering that free giveaway, once we post it, just join our Discord, which the link will be in the description. Come on in. We talk about Tyranids and all things Warhammer 40k. And then there's always going to be a giveaway every 2 to 3 months that we'll post, and the information will be in that Discord. And last but not least, our yearly goal of 3,000 subscribers was reached. Thanks. That's incredible. When we started this, we couldn't even imagine 3,000 subscribers. And at this time of recording, we're pretty much at 3,500 subscribers, and we're knocking on the door of 4K. So if you'd like to support us and give us a subscription, we'd love to have you. When you are playing your beautiful flying beetlebug boys, whatever, gargoyles, remember these things in order to make sure that you're making the most of them. First, they are there to die, but choose when they die. Yes, gargoyles are a prime candidate of just throwing out units to die so that your other units can function stronger. However, that also means you have to choose when they die. Okay, don't let your opponents just kill your gargoyles for free. Make sure that, yes, you are sending your units out to die. However, make sure that it is well worth the trade. If you are sending out your gargoyles and your intent is to move block a unit, double check with your opponent and double check with your measurement and everything that will actually move block that unit. It feels really bad when you send your gargoyles out and your opponent just moves around them and then is able to kill your gargoyles and then kill another unit as well for free. So double check that and make sure that the way you are using your gargoyles is actually how they will be used, or else it can feel bad and your gargoyles will be dead. And next, yes, they are very fragile and flimsy, but make your opponent roll out the wounds and shots, especially if it's just a small number of shots. A unit with 10 shots into another unit is probably not going to kill 10 models. So make them roll it out. Maybe put the 5 up, feel no pain if they're in evasion, and it will actually make your gargoyles much tougher than you would originally think. In addition, when you're doing this, if your opponent is shooting exactly 10 shots, try and pull your gargoyles and have them die in a way where it can make your enemy's other units have a hard time seeing the rest of the unit. It can be pretty good. And then this bullet point is kind of cheeky. It's kind of tricky. Spin the wings out when you have that dog bone thing. Spin the wings out so that they're kind of on the outside flanks if you're wanting to move block, because you also can't move through your gargoyles' wings, and that just creates just a small iota of extra space for your gargoyles to cover. Pre-measure your scoot. I always kind of add an additional 6 inches to my gargoyles movement before I even advance to kind of determine where they can go before I activate them for a movement. It'll help you figure out lines of sight and figure out where they will end up after they move and shoot. And last but certainly not least, with these gargoyles, is when you are shooting with them, shoot at least 4 gargoyles into a unit to ensure the scoot. Even 4 is probably not 100%, because in order for the gargoyle's ability to activate, they of course have to hit. It's never happened to me before, but if I have 2 or 3 gargoyles that can only see, and both of them miss, then your gargoyles can definitely be positioned in a place where you don't want them. So definitely make sure that you are able to shoot a good number of gargoyles into a unit just to for sure 100% activate that shoot and scoot. All right, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us during this video. A little bit of a shorter one, but definitely wanted to highlight our gargoyles because they are such a strong unit. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend and a fantastic Thanksgiving if you do celebrate. And we'll see you Wednesday. Take it easy. Bye.